Alina, this book is something else. She's saying, she's saying that the things that, that stand out to you, the things that you want to repeat and all of these things into your life. Listen, everything
stands out.
So I break it down into portions that I can manage.
This really was transformative.
Hi, good evening and welcome to Book Club Conversations. You guys know by now you all are the Achievers. That is the new name, the Achievers. So welcome Achievers to Book Club Conversations. Launchpad Consultancy collaborating with Vision Work Solutions bring you Series 6. And in this series, entrepreneurs and professionals are reading the book, The Uncommon Achiever, written by Mike Murdock. As I say every evening, my name is Alina Lewis. Hi, and welcome to those who are probably viewing for the first time. I'm an author, business coach, and education consultant. And joining me this evening are two of my good ones on the panel, and hopefully a couple of other people would be passing through for the evening, but super excited to have back in our virtual studio, Roel Rollocks and Simone Nickham. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Good evening.
I'm really excited to have you. We are on day number 8, talking about the uncommon achiever. So as I always do, every evening, I'm going to start with my favorite. What stood out to you in chapter 8 as Mike Murdock got into the discussion about being willing to start small? What was your big takeaway, Roel? What was it for you?
Good evening again, everyone. These sessions have been really powerful, really powerful. Mike Murdock is on the button. Every chapter captures the real essence of this, achiever spirit. This person who goes beyond, this uncommon achiever. So. Again, this whole idea of not despising that time when you just begin something, the small, those areas that we count as small. It's so important. In fact, as I reflected upon it, he said, little things matter. And it's so true, because I have found, at least in my experience, that you see those beginning moments, that is where you get some of the most important lessons, some of the most important disciplines are developed, and they form a foundation for the rest of your life, whether we're talking about professional life or personal life. So in fact, those early days are almost like an apprenticeship, and it's at that time that you learn about, appreciating everyone, even those of lower estate. I remember working in organizations where they will trample upon the security guards and the maids and the cleaners. But when you have to start there, you have to begin to appreciate what these individuals go through. That apprenticeship period teaches you about perseverance and how to follow instructions, and you learn. You also learn from people who are more experienced from you. You see how they do, how they are successful, and you also learn some of the tricks of the trade, things that they are doing, to make their job or their career or their life or their marriage or whatever it is that we're looking at better. It's also a time when we also build credibility and trust, because if we can build credibility and trust in these small matters, it augurs well for the rest of our growth and our development. So this whole idea that the small things matter cannot be overemphasized or overestimated. It's really a powerful thing to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Simone, what about you? What would have stood out to you as we looked at chapter 8?
Nothing you will do today is small in the eyes of God. That's what stood out for me. And good evening, everyone. Why it stood out for me? Because I believe starting small and doing things small is my MO. And when I was developing my Create Your Own Narrative workshop, the question came to me, how do you help people to move from where they are to where they dream to be? And that could be a big jump, a big difference. But how do you get there? It's the small, seemingly small things you do every day. But there's a quote that says, "Success comes when we do the small things and repeat them day in and day out." So when we do it intentionally, those small things are compounded, they add up, and nothing that we do is small in God's eyes. That's what stood out to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Simone. As I was going through the discussion, one of the things that I thought significant is Mike Murdock took away the shame that for many takes place when starting small. And I think it's noteworthy for a lot of people. Emphasis is placed on the spectacular beginning, the grand entrance. It must be a big bang, you know. But when I look at what Mike Murdock was sharing in the chapter, we would realize that he is saying that it really isn't about the spectacular. As a matter of fact, Mike Murdock was saying that when you do the simple, the spectacular occurs. And he also shared in that chapter that many will never become an uncommon achiever because they want their beginning to be spectacular. But then reminded us that small beginnings often have great endings. And that really caused me to realize, you know what, we need to make a shift because rapid fire is not for chapter 8, but instead, I love these conversations. We get to have all these lovely ebbs and flows
You
and
have a
twists
lot
and
of
turns,
fun.
right? Instead of rapid fire, actually, I wanted our wisdom for transformation to be story time. And when I say story time, because I think it's noteworthy to consider, okay, if we're talking about really embracing and appreciating our small beginnings, why not take a moment to share a story about an experience or a project, a business idea, whatever it may be, that would have started off as a small, a humble beginning, but yet worked for your good. And I'll jump off with a little story time, even as you guys think of your own. And as a matter of fact, when I thought about it, I ran out of the room and I went to my husband and I said, "Honey, I could tell a story about you tonight." I made sure I got permission first, but actually, his journey really stood out to me when I thought about this because when I first met him, he actually wasn't doing what he's doing now. He had a skill, he had an ability, but he never thought about pushing it forward. And he did it only if somebody happened to ask him, "Hey, come and do this job for me," and he'll go do it. And I remember in the beginning when my husband started working on his own, because I said to him, I'm like, "Why do you work for people? I don't understand. Your level of skill is so good. Why don't you work for yourself?" And within maybe about a year or two of me saying that, he did open his business. And you know what? His business opening was just that, one of small beginning. That when I met him, he thought that he couldn't do it because he didn't have the grand spectacular big bang. But out of this small beginning, I remember looking and it's like, okay, you have a trowel, you have a shovel, you have a fork, you have a measuring tape. Use what you have. And that's what he did. He used what he had. He didn't have a vehicle to carry it around. He had to figure out how to transport himself. He didn't own all the tools at the time. He had to figure out how to maybe get it rented depending on what he needed. He didn't have the fancy packaging, so he used what he had when he had to go from job to job. Was it inconvenient? Of course. Was it difficult? Of course. Were there moments where on his way to building his dream, people looked down on him? Of course, they did. And when, he stood by the road to wait for the taxi or the car with his tools and his bag, and everybody passed with their vehicle and they literally looked down on him. Did he feel good? Of course not. But humble beginnings often lead to great achievement. And that's what it was. And when I looked at his journey and I looked at what Mike Murdock was saying about, embracing the small beginning, what he did, he learned and he took it step by step, and doors opened for him and he connected with the right people, and the jobs that he got moved from one level to another, where the quality of work that he's able to do, he really got to shine. And even now we make jokes about the type of things he used as tools back in the day. I can't even say tools. I have to say the things he used for tools, because he's improvising, starting small, and now he owns them. He doesn't even have to rent them. He owns what he needs, and he's able to build and to grow and to get magnificent work done. And so even as I think of an example of, it doesn't have to be spectacular. There was nothing spectacular about when he started, because all he had was a shovel, a trowel, the measuring tape, and one other item that's not coming to my mind right now. But it was like 4 basic items that he had. And from there, now here he is, owner of his own business, that when he goes out, he has his crew going with him, and he's doing these magnificent pieces of work, all because he chose to pursue the dream, even though it wasn't perfect. He chose to accept, even when he was challenged. He chose to accept, I have something to contribute. I have a unique view on how things can be done. I am hardworking. I can make this happen. I will remain humble, so I take directions. He embodied those things. And because he did, his very small beginning turned into him being able to have a life that growing up he never imagined he would be able to have. Is he done? Has he arrived? No. But he is on his way in achieving that uncommon dream, because now he gets to look at himself, his life, his progress, and say, wow, look at what I have been able to do.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tell that story as my version of story time, and how it can be so not spectacular, so simple, so humble, so challenging. But that doesn't mean to run away from the experience just because it doesn't look perfect, or it's not a fancy way that the competitors or the other service providers are doing it. It doesn't mean that you're any less than. Or even for me, when I started, and Rolly would know, when I started in education all those years ago, my first table was a table that I built with my own hands. Humble beginnings. I didn't even buy my first set of furniture. I built and borrowed, because it really was a non-spectacular starting off. And even as I read this chapter, Roll, I remembered you. Because one of the first things you said to me when I met you all those years ago is, and it wasn't because I don't think I was communicating anything grand to you at the time, but you said to me, never despise humble beginnings. And I've always remembered that. And you always trumped the importance of valuing organic growth. There is value. I still remember all these years later. I remember that being that a part of our conversation. There is value in organic growth, because you get to stumble, pick yourself back up, clean it up and make it better. And I don't want to say anymore because I might take away from your story time and your lessons to share. But I remembered you when I was reading this. I really want to encourage people out there. Being an uncommon achiever doesn't have to mean perfection or grandeur, but it means tapping into what is on the inside and daring to live it out and daring to put in the work to work through the vision that is on the inside, to do the thing on the earth that only you can do because there is only one you. Yeah? So am I volunteering or are you all volunteering? We're on story time this evening. What is your story about your evolution, whether a project or otherwise, that came out of small beginnings?
So I'll go. I was working in a department when we developed a new line of business. And I was given the opportunity to be the supervisor on that new line of business. I really looked up to my current supervisor at the time, Tony, and I said, Tony, I look up to how you do things. Yes, I know I do have that level of confidence and I'm ready to give this a go. But can I come back to you and talk with you? And if there's anything I don't understand, would you be available? And he said, yeah, sure, Simone. And he encouraged me further in terms of his confidence in me. So I embarked on that. And, there were days that I had to kind of fight through some things to make sure that I understood it, that I grasped it. And that went well. Maybe about 2 years after, another opportunity came. And this time, that manager, she was more of a hard taskmaster, but I will call her a beautiful sharpener. She was a sharpener for me because she told me up front, listen, when I have to review your performance, don't expect me to just give you a pass, So I told myself, wow, Simone, you have to step up. My way of stepping up is taking my time. I need to go slow at the beginning. So I told myself, you know what, Simone, at the end of this year, you don't need to get a pass. What you need to do, what I need to do, is to be able to understand what this role involves and what my work involves, and understand it to the point where I am not just doing this, I am doing it, looking to improve upon it and adding value. And with that mindset, I started simply take my time, understand, grow from the experience. And I will tell you that before the year came up, I was at a place where I was doing what I wanted to do. I understood the work clearly. I was able to add value. I was able to make suggestions. I was able to defend a certain position that I may have had. So it went really well. I did get a very good performance appraisal. Years later, I am in a space now where I liaise with people in different territories in the Caribbean, not all English speaking, and starting small and looking to understand before wanting to just jump, go to the head of the class. Starting small is what helped me to be able to do what I do. And my takeaway from that is what I have adopted in life. When I have persons to train or when I have to share information with, I don't assume because somebody's title might be manager or vice president that they know. I break it down very small and very simple, because that to me is the deciding factor there. Once you get that foundation going in that small way, where I think Roel mentioned it earlier, or was it you, Alina, where you said you can get into the details of it, then you are ready at a particular time to really take off and so. So that's my story with small beginnings.
Yeah. And so for those now joining in, Achievers, we having story time right now because Mike Murdock is taking us through an experience where we say, don't be afraid of small beginnings, embrace small beginnings. So to make it plain, we're having story time tonight where we are sharing from personal experience about a project, a business, or otherwise that would have started off very non spectacular, very simple, but it worked to produce a significant result. And so, even as we get ready for Roll to share his hashtag story time, I would encourage you, please comment in the comment section, get down there and share with us what started off simple for you, but it worked to produce a good result. We want to hear from you. You know, we love reading your comments. So, Roll, off to you.
Yeah, I would say, Simone mentioned something there about foundation. And I think, Miles always says that there's a purpose in everything. And the early times, the beginning times, are foundational times. And if you build well, they build a platform that you can stand upon. And if you rush it and you don't prepare that foundation well, it means that the rest of your career, life, relationship, think about it even in terms of a relationship. And I don't know, maybe it's some sort of psychology, but I don't know where people get this idea that things begin spectacular, in the spectacular way. Because if you trace anyone that you discern to be spectacular today, they had a small beginning. But I think what God does is He hides you. And I think He hides you so that you can develop and build without all the eyes and all the criticisms on you. So I
Yes.
remember for me studying abroad and coming back home, right? Looking for a job, you can't find a job. It was very competitive, particularly in my area that I studied. So I saw an organization, which at the time was the UWI Institute of Business. People now know it today as the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. And I said, I want to work there. There were no openings, Alina. So what did I have to do? I went and I offered my service for free. You understand? So I was there every day. I remember those times well because I did not even have a shoe. I had a sandals, you understand, at that time. And I remember going there with my little sandwich in my bag and every day. And what was I doing, Alina? Packing envelopes to mail out. I'm back home with a degree, first class honors, all kinds of accolades. And I was there packing envelopes, putting desks out, wiping tables, wiping chairs. I was the go for. Anything that had to be done, I had to get it done. To clean, to pack up. It was late hours, early nights, and this was without a salary, you know. And I mentioned that to say that those times were learning times, and I spoke earlier about apprenticeship. You know, there's so much that we can learn if we adopt that apprenticeship sort of a spirit, especially when you're now starting off. But some of us want it too quickly. You understand? There's so much that you can learn as you build your credibility. So of course, what you think happened? Once people recognize that you're committed, they give you more responsibility. Listen, Roll, I started writing reports and I started answering the phone and so out of that simple experience, I eventually became a consultant there. You understand? And that essentially formed the foundation for my entire career. And all the service and all the persons that I'm able to help and support, those were the early days that built that character into me. Discipline, sticking to it, working hard, staying up late nights, early mornings, getting it done, making sure that the customer was happy. That was a big thing. I had to make sure that customer, in this case, a student, was happy. Did they get the books on time? in those days we used to have meals, so I had to make sure the meals were ready. Listen, it was so much in that short space of that short period that I'm so thankful for, and that had became the foundation that I can probably stand on, and then also encourage other persons. But those things taught me so many lessons, how to appreciate even other persons who are now in that phase. So you find that I always have a heart for, I wouldn't call it the underdog, but I always have a heart for that person who's now starting out. That startup, that has remained with me because I understood what it took to start up and bootstrap yourself to make things happen and achieve success. So that's my story.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing that role because in so many instances, society tends to imply that once you go through the schooling and you have the accolades, oh wow, the plane is about to take off. And for many, when you get out with the degrees and the masters and everything else that society implies, you just need to get this qualification and life will be perfectly wonderful. You realize, oh, it's not like that. And people become discouraged.
Yes,
And
yes.
not all are able to handle it with a good spirit. But I'm so happy you shared that because I hope that it really stands as a testimony, not just for something from years ago, but it's still real today. That there is that need to put in the work, to prove yourself, to position yourself to learn, that there's a place for humility in knowing that even if you went through graduate school and you have all the theoretical understanding, you still need to start and learn and grow so that
Yes.
you could be shaped into becoming whatever the it is that you are being molded for, or the dream that you are pursuing. So, guys, thank you for jumping in with story time. That was awesome. I want to ask you though, Mike Murdock in his writing, he talked about attention to details. And he said specifically that attention to details produces excellence. And he continued on to say, that we should not despise and feel insignificant in small acts of obedience while giving birth to your assignment. And a number of other places in the chapter, he mentioned that detail. And from a very practical point of view, I wanted to ask, what type of detail are you mindful to pay attention to along your journey? Because we understand that depending on what we're involved in, what we're doing, what we pay attention to may vary from profession to profession, or from vision to vision, from activity to activity, and even based on your personality it would vary. So my question is, what attention to detail stands out for you? What do you pay attention to that these are must do's or must haves in your routine that really pushes you towards achievement in your different endeavors? Oh Lord, yes, Simone. Thanks for volunteering. The computer volunteered, you girl. Yes.
Oh,
So
what areas? What areas do I pay attention to? I pay attention to the way I communicate. Firstly, with words. Words are very, very powerful. And possibly I did that because I am personally an emotional person, or rather, I'm a very sensitive person. Although I've learned to build up a kind of resilient shell because, we're all vulnerable in different ways. And I realized the way people communicate, what they say, what they do, how they look at you, their body language, it speaks a lot. And it has an effect on a person. So I'm very mindful. When I'm writing an email, the tone, I always like to give a very warm welcome because I like to connect with people. And especially if I am new to them or they are new to me. So for example, 3 years ago when I started in the position that I'm in now, or in the organization that I'm with, one of my 100 days goals was to make sure I connected with new people every day. So that was actually a goal. And did that was I might be in the lunchroom, somebody comes in, and I would introduce myself. Hi, my name is Simone. I'm new here. How long have you been in? So that way, I would get to know a little more about them and more about the organization as well. What I find also is where I was in my previous job, when we had on the job trainees in, or if I had to train somebody, how I communicated that would allow me to know, or would allow them to absorb what I was telling them. So I pay particular attention about how I might talk to someone. And I always like to use stories because a story brings it to life. So I would say the way I communicate to people, that's one of the things I pay attention to and give a lot of detailed thought to it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simone. Roel, what about you? When you think about attention to detail, what elements really stand out for you to always include in your endeavors that works well for helping support success and achievement?
Yes, I've been fortunate, even though I wouldn't consider myself to be a very detailed person. I was thrown into a responsibility where I had to write proposals, and in writing proposals, you had to take a very project management approach to it. So you had to have every detail, Simone spoke earlier about communication. You had to go through it cover to cover. But one of the things that jumped out at me from the experience is that I realized one day that, at the end of the day, this is about people. And I realized that I'm in the people business, and sometimes we could get lost by looking at the numbers and looking at the figures and looking at the digits and looking at how nice this is built and how tall this is and how comfortable it is. And we forget that at the end of the day, it's about people and being in the people business. So I found that for me, one of the details that I have grown to have as a must do in all that I do is to seek first to understand what's happening with people, then be understood, which is actually one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people, So I found that spending time to consider the impact and the implication and what it means for individuals and how they feel about any effort that I'm into, I think has been the detail that I focus on, and it has made all the difference. I've seen it show up in my coaching practice. I've seen it show up in relationships. I've seen it show up all the time. Understanding how people feel. There's somebody says it another way. People don't care what you know until
they know how much you care.
Yes, until they know how much you care. You understand? So demonstrating care for me has been to me one of the most important details, because we're involved in business, we are in families, we're doing all these things. Why? So that we can have a better life. It's all about our living. So if what we're doing is not helping our living, it means that we need to revisit it. So I've been passionate over the years about looking at how things impact people, and hence the reason why impact has become such a big part of what I do. What's the impact on our lives every day or relationship? So that's the detail that I focus on.
Yeah, thank you so much. For me, I tend to focus on being organized in everything that I do. Everything that I do is tailored towards being applied individually. All of my learning environments are interactive. And interactive, not meaning that I engage dialogue when I'm in a training session or whatever, but interactive meaning that the way I help people is by helping them understand who they are, what they need, and the resources that are required to go to the next level. And the only way I can do that is that I have to be organized. I have to be aware of who people are, what they need, what do their needs mean, what are the resources available, what resources are applicable and would work best for Tom, Jenny, and Marianne. And because everything I do tailors resources to individual needs, not just group needs, but literally individual needs. So my ability to stay organized and to be very aware of what are the resources around, what are the technologies available, what are the methodologies that work best, it caused me to always be prepared. Because when I walk into a room, whether I'm dealing with children or whether I'm dealing with adults, everyone come in with a different challenge, a different base of experience, a different everything. And when I walk into the room, it is incumbent on me to be able to provide a solution for Tom, Jake, and Henry. And the only way I could do that is that I have to know what are the variations of solutions that exist so that I could tailor it for them. So if I'm not organized, if I'm not researched, if I'm not staying on top of all of these areas, then I will not be able to do my job well. So for me, my ability to be organized and stay organized works well in all fields that I operate in, and it ensures that at every level I'm able to produce the quality of results that I am working towards producing. Yeah, but I wanted to ask the question, what do you have going on in your individual endeavors that would be able to inspire and encourage persons to be able to continue to pursue their own passion? And I ask that in the context of impact because all three of us function in the area of impact, maybe in different strains and specializations, but we all support people in terms of empowering them to be their best selves. So I wanted to just give you a minute, a moment to say, could you take a moment to share with what you have going on that people viewing can connect with and be a part of, that they would be able to be inspired, have access to resources, and understand how they too could effectively continue along their journey to being that uncommon achiever. So I'll leave the floor open.
Yes, I guess I'll jump in here.
Sure.
Yeah, there are a couple areas that I'm working on, along with my team and the persons that I partner with. One of them is I had mentioned before, and it's called Vision Sundays. And one of the things we're focusing on is affirmations. We spoke in earlier sessions about the importance of creating the environment that breeds success. And part of that environment is what you say to yourself, your self-talk, particularly when you are down and times are challenging and everything around you seems to suggest something different. It seems to suggest that you should stop or you should give up. That's the time when you need to improve your self-talk. So what we have done, we've put together something called morning affirmations. These affirmations come out every Sunday, and these affirmations are given so that you can repeat them every day of the week. Every morning of the week, or as often as you would do it. And these affirmations are simple statements that declare positive actions over your life. Positive statements over your life, declaring that you're a winner, declaring that you will succeed, declaring that you're a magnet for success, declaring that you will not fear, that you will overcome the challenges. And it's very important to speak these things into your life and over yourself. So, please check us out, on YouTube, on Facebook. You could see a lot more about what we're doing in that regard as far as the morning affirmations. The other one I'd like to encourage persons to look at as well, on Fridays, we have what we call Financial Fridays, which is tomorrow. So every Friday, we focus on this whole area of finance, which is core to so many of us. I am passionate about helping individuals become financially independent. All right? Too many persons are overly dependent on a source of income that is not something that will take you into proper retirement, will cause you to be financially independent. Okay? So Financial Fridays looks at how you budget, how you invest, how you spend your money, how you make investment choices, and a whole range of other topics that we'll be dealing with. One of the areas we've been looking at recently is money, income earning opportunities. It's a time when people believe that the space is so depressed that I just throw my hands up, but know that there are opportunities and persons are doing so right now, right among us. People are making opportunities happen and work for them. So these are some of the things we share with you on Financial Friday. So those two things I'd like persons to look out for. Check us out, VisionWorks, on Facebook, on YouTube, on our webpage, www.visionworks.solutions. And you can see a little bit more about some of the work we're doing in these two areas.
Thank you so much, Roel. What about you, Simone? Oh, Simone, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm going to jump off using a word that Roel just mentioned there, and affirmations. Why? Because coming in September, school should be reopening. And that transition for students going into Form 1 from primary to secondary school, they now go into Form 1, as well as students who are moving from Form 1 into Form 2, they haven't actually seen their classmates face to face. And that transition can be a bit challenging or scary, or there might be some anxiety. So create your own narrative workshop. We're tailoring something for our Form 1s and Form 2s, because they might be wondering, who am I? Am I enough? Where would I fit in? Would I be accepted? But they are enough. And we want to help them to successfully transition. It might be a small step for some persons, but for them, this is big. So we want to give them that confidence. Besides their books and their school bag, we want to give them that confidence in their head and in their heart. You are ready, and you are a big deal in God's eyes. Whatever you do now, it might seem small, but it is substantial, it is significant, and I'm excited about helping our Form 1s and 2s to prepare to navigate come September to go out to school. So look out for it. It will be coming in August for Form 1s and 2s, helping them to create their own narrative to lead with confidence.
Thank you so much, Simone. And I just want to quickly mention one of the things I'm actually going to be organizing a 4-part series for owners of businesses and leaders of organizations, NGOs, and so on, because a lot of people have had difficulty finding their voice and being able to express their voice, express their purpose, really communicate their organizational mission digitally, because everyone was so accustomed to, we have a physical venue, we have a physical meeting, and a lot of people have not transitioned well. So actually, I'm preparing to facilitate a 4-part series. It's a free series for leaders of organization who really want to get in touch and understand how they can transition their outreach onto digital platforms to still make impact. So that rollout is coming soon, within the next week, I believe. So I really want to encourage you, if you want to learn more, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can search for Lena Lewis. I'm definitely going to be posting that information on the LinkedIn platform. So if you too believe you would benefit from being part of such a training series, you can always opt to join. And secondly, I just want to mention, as Simone just shared, we want to be mindful that we want to be built for confidence and with confidence when we get ready for the new academic year. And so I'm super excited for what Simone has to offer. And I want to share as well that through the Excellence in Parenting program that I coordinate, we also provide support, but in this context for parents. A lot of times we give focus on the needs of the student, and duly so because they need support. But I'm simply recognizing that parents need support too. And through the Excellence in Parenting series, what we're able to do is to hold your hand and using the Excellence Journal, help you to understand the stages of learning that your child should be progressing through. So that way you would be able to have meaningful impact and engage meaningful learning from home. Because even when our children return to physical brick and mortar school, it doesn't change the fact that there's a responsibility of the family to frame the child in a positive mindset to be able to engage and maximize learning. And for many parents, it's not your specialization, we know. So we want to be able to help you. So to learn more about the Excellence in Parenting, the new cycle starts in September. I really want to encourage you to visit Facebook. You can visit, just look for Excellence Journal, and you're going to be able to find loads of information about the series, how it works, and how parents have been impacted. So I really want to encourage parents of both primary and secondary students to definitely take a look at that. Guys, I'm so happy that you all got to come and join in for this evening conversation. What closing words as you reflect on chapter 8 do you want to share with our viewing audience?
Okay, I'll jump in.
Sure.
There's a particular quotation. Let me see. Yes, in the chapter, Murdock says, "God does not give great instructions to great men. God gives uncommon instructions to common men." Right? And as I reflected on that, one of the things that stuck with me is that there's really no such thing as little things, or what we call small things. It really doesn't exist, right? Because the small things aren't really small. Because what God is after is a heart position. All right? These things, God, remember, God looks at our intent and our motives and why we do what we do and what we bring to the table. All right? The things that many people don't see. And these very small times, gives a very clear idea of where our heart is. When no one is looking, when it's not important to anybody, you understand? When people may trample upon you, do you have your heart in the right position where you will continue to obey and to have faith and to exercise discipline? And these are really, when you think about it, not easy things. You understand? Having faith and having discipline, these are tough things. And if we can learn and master these lessons in the small things, you can imagine what God can give to us. So I just wanted to, repeat that, re-emphasize that there are really no little things. It's really about our heart position and the things that God has given us to do.
Yeah, so I would say Murdock also in this chapter, he spoke about we often have a different mental picture of how success comes. But remember the fairy tale Cinderella? Cinderella's success came by her sweeping, because all that practice she had sweeping the cinders, she was able to sweep the prince off his feet. And something Royal said earlier when he was giving us his story about working in the IOB, and I could just picture him stuffing those envelopes. It was small, but somehow I picture him stuffing it with joy. And I want people to know when you do something, whatever you do, however small or short or detailed it might be, do it with joy. Find your joy in doing something, and that in itself would make it so much more interesting and inviting. Not only that, it will attract more of what it is you want to achieve. So enjoy whatever might seem small and do it with great joy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simone. I just really want to encourage people to continue looking on the inside to discover what is there. Tap into passion and purpose will not come by looking at what your neighbor is doing, your schoolmate is doing, your colleague is doing, or whoever else. Yes, we can be inspired by the world around us, but certainly discovering passion and purpose as an internal, very personal experience. And when we're able to look on the inside, it means what we do is we cut out those unhealthy practices of comparing ourselves to others, wanting to duplicate the work of others, and the unhealthy practice that comes with it that also causes us to devalue who we are and the contribution we have to make on the earth. Like your voice is important. The things that are in you, your skill set, it's important. Live it out. And so just because it looks different from what someone else is doing doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That just means you have more of a reason to celebrate because your unique view is what is going to make way for you and is going to create the path. So I really want to encourage people to continue to look on the inside, to tap in on the inside to what is there. And don't be afraid to put in the work. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, when you have to challenge yourself to be your best self. It's uncomfortable when you have to correct yourself. Even today I apologize to someone because I spoke to that person in a tone of voice that in reflection I didn't like, and I said to that person, I apologize. And the person said to me, no, it's okay, I understand why you responded like that. And I said, you know what, thank you for saying that, but that is not who I want to be. And for that reason, I apologize and I commit to respond to these situations differently so that we can be solution oriented in every moment that we're working on this thing. And so for all of us, we'll have our own version of that where we have to recognize what is on the inside, who we want to be, and be able to connect, to give expression to that through the work that we do during our lifetime. So guys, it has been wonderful. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Simone, for joining me here this evening. And for those who are viewing, you all were quiet tonight, but we hope you were quiet because you were really taking in and soaking up everything we were talking about. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue on with Book Club Conversation Series 6. Until then, take care and good night.